Hello everyone, today I'm bringing you another in a series of videos looking at British private purchase desert boots used during the course of the First Gulf War. In the previous part in this series we had a look at an example from Romas, the manufacturer Romas, who I believe manufactured them at the time. They're certainly the current manufacturer of the style of boots we looked at in the previous video. And the pair we're going to look at here are also produced by Romas, although I'm not sure that this particular pair we're looking at here are actually from Romas. They could be from another manufacturer, but this pattern is certainly also manufactured by Romas. They're a very simple pair of boots, there's no real tread to the sole or anything like that, so these would be of limited use, but there are some odd photographs out there showing what appear to be this style in use as well. So we're going to have a look at these in some detail. There isn't a huge amount to look at with these, they're very plain, so it won't be a very long video, but nevertheless, we're going to have a look at these boots now in the amount of detail required to look at the limited features that these boots have.
So here we have the boots we're going to have a look at. These are very conventional in terms of construction, and there's no real tread on the sole to speak of, so how useful these would be for actually moving and fighting in the desert, I would doubt they would be particularly good in sandy conditions. I think you'd need more of a tread than these have. We'll see the soles are pretty much a crepe sole, they're pretty much smooth. I have seen the odd photograph of boots which appear to be this design being worn out in the Gulf. Generally, I would say by rear echelon troops. I can't imagine these would be favoured by troops in frontline roles who are having to move and fight across the sand and obviously the rocky conditions as well. You'd want something with a better tread than these have, I would imagine. But we'll have a look at these and obviously show you that detail as well. So they are very simple in terms of construction, as I say. You can see here the seams and so forth. The overall design, very, very simple. Eyelets in this instance as opposed to the D-rings we saw previously. So again, very much a simple design of boot. They are very, very soft, very pliable suede leather with a lining material as we saw on the previous pair of boots we looked at. And quite lightweight as well. There's not much to these really. Speaking of the sole, you can see here, it's basically a crepe sole. There's no tread at all, just this very fine pattern, very fine indentations, so they'd be fine on a hard surface, but on shifting sand and so forth, I'm not convinced these would be any good. But as I say, there are some photographs which seem to show this pattern of boots being used. Again, I believe these would have been a product of Romas. These particular examples are made by a company called Hobo, or Hobos. You can see in there. Get the light in there, you can see. But they are of a pattern still made by Romas, and I imagine Romas would have been manufacturing these at the time. Inside, you can see we have that lining material again, as we had with the Romas boots we looked at in the previous video in this series, and they are lightly padded, so there is a light padding between the outer leather and this lining material. And I have worn these, they're very comfortable. They came second-hand again, so they were not expensive. There were a little bit of wear on the soles, but not much at all really. And they are very comfortable to wear, much more comfortable than the issue footwear that was available at the time. So if you're in a role where the lack of tread on the sole would not be too much of a problem, you can imagine these being a popular choice because they're, again, very comfortable. And they would have been relatively cheap at the time. They're still pretty cheap to buy new today, about £30. So not expensive footwear by any means. You can see here the other boot, again, looking at the construction on the instep here, on the inside face of the boot. Again, very, very simple in terms of the overall design. The size, I think, is stamped into the tongue. I have size 10 there, as you can see. So the overall the materials used are basically the same as those we saw with the previous pair of boots we looked at, the D-ring desert boots, and the same colour, the same tone of leather and so forth, the same colour of rubber used for the sole as well. So the same materials used, just manufactured to a slightly different pattern. And obviously a simpler pattern, not using the D-rings, just having the eyelets down the front there. Again, flat cotton laces, as you can see. And as I say, in some photographs, it does appear this pattern of boot are worn. We're going to have a look at another pair of Romas boots in a future video, which certainly did show up, and you can see them worn by infantrymen to some degree. Again, with these, it's important to look at period photographs, try and pick these out, find out who was wearing them and how common they were. That's another thing as well, is that private purchase boots were not ubiquitous by any means. The majority of men, of course, used issue footwear, war issue footwear. It's only in certain circumstances that men would privately purchase boots such as these and other patterns as well. So again, don't take this as sort of being a common thing or the rule. It was somewhat the exception, but there are plenty of photographs out there showing that individuals did go out and buy boots. But obviously in terms of the overall numbers of personnel deployed, it's a drop in the ocean compared to those who didn't bother to go out and buy private purchase footwear. Anyway, that's a look at these desert boots. I say very plain, very simple design. We'll have another look at a product of Roma's in a future video in this series. We're going to have a look at some Saudi desert boots as well.
So I hope you found it interesting looking at these. There will be further parts in this series looking at other private purchase boots used during the course of the Gulf War by British troops. So if you'd like to see those, you have found this video interesting, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And whether you're newly subscribing or you've previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the little bell, the notification button down below. That will of course alert you when I upload future videos. If you really like my uploads and you would like to support the channel, you can. Both Patreon and PayPal are linked down below. And as I always say, a huge thank you to everybody who supports the channel using those two methods. It really is greatly appreciated. As I always say, thank you all very much indeed. If you'd like to follow the channel on social media, you can. Facebook, Instagram and Twitter are all linked down below. And if you'd like to get in touch with me, but you don't really use social media, there is of course an email address in the description as well. That's everything for this video. So until next time, bye for now.